But I thank the guys from PSE&G who were here, who were working diligently. So if they're listening now or maybe listening on the fan later at 6, I'll thank them on the fan because they're local guys. They might not be listening on radio.com. I'm not sure. They might. But if they're not, we'll thank them again later on the fan at 6 for their diligent work today. Did a great job getting us up. I told them I needed to be up by 5 o'clock today. They did a good job and got us up by about 4 o'clock. So we checked everything through. We were having some issues back at the studio, but now we seem to be ready to go and we're good. Okay, so there isn't much going on in sports today. This is almost a day where Easter's gone. Obviously, the strangest Easter any of us have ever gone through. And sports is just waiting to see what our leaders are going to do. They want to see what the next move is. And I think that's where everybody is today. There's a lot going on right now because everybody's edgy. Everybody's reached the point where they're ready to get to the next phase. You're hearing about plateauing. You're not seeing great decrease in numbers yet. The number of deaths in New York went down. It's still a very high number, but it's no longer in the 7s. Now it's in the 6s. A step in the right direction, a small one at best, but a small one. You still have way too many cases, almost 200,000 in the state of New York, 568,000 nationally, 22,000 deaths nationally. The number goes up. It doubled in a week. The number goes up by thousands every night. You get over 1,000 just in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And this area, the Northeast, has kind of unified. And they did unify today as the governors all unified behind Andrew Cuomo, who was clearly the lead guy, in getting them all together and talking about how they would be unified. Now, we're going to play this game of who's in charge, which is silly because who cares? We don't care. People don't care. The people who want to get back to work and back to some form of normalcy don't care. And remember, the federal government didn't close the country, so why would they officially reopen it? Because, first of all, the country hasn't been officially closed. There are states that never closed. And the states closed as they saw fit. Governors made their choices across the country as they saw fit, and some didn't see fit to do it at all. So it's not like everybody closed. There was no national ordinance. There was no national rule. And that's probably the way we're going to reopen. We're going to reopen piece by piece. Now, the president's going to speak in a little while, and I think this is going to be a very big day for the president because a lot's going on. He's at odds with his main medical guy who has become a bit of a rock star, and that's, of course, Fauci. He and Fauci didn't have the best of weekends. They didn't play nice together over Easter. There's been all kinds of rumors about their relationship. President wants to call it a, media creation, except one thing. When a tweet asking to fire Fauci came up, he retweeted it, which didn't make it look like it was anybody else involved except him. So that created a bit of a stir. There's also governors who's in charge versus president who's in charge. And then you have regions of the country pushing. So one state might be ready to do it based on what they see from their dynamics. Another state may be lagging behind. So this is going to be very interesting to watch. And on top of this, sports, which looks at things from a national viewpoint. They're not interested in what Texas wants versus what California wants versus what Missouri wants versus what New York wants. They want to know that they can have the country back and they can get back and get some semblance of order. Now, we're still ways away from a vaccine. We're probably still a ways away from some kind of therapeutic that we can hang our hats on, maybe by the fall if we get very, very lucky. The question is really this: how do we reopen? When do we reopen? And whose set of rules are we going to abide? Who are we going to listen to when we reopen? because we still don't have any real plan as a way to open. And even anybody who has hinted about it, and they're all eager. You heard governors today talk about how they're eager to reopen. You're going to hear the president come up in a little while and talk about how he's eager to reopen. You heard the governor of Texas talking about how he's eager to reopen. You heard the governor of California talking about how he's eager to reopen. Everybody's eager to reopen now because they know that what's coming down the tracks is scary. We've pushed this economic slowdown, if you want to call it that, or really economic, shut off or closure. We have pushed it about as far as we can push it. Everybody says that. Everyone's talking about what they're looking at in terms of small business failures, in terms of people not being able to pay their rent or their mortgage, and unemployment, people not having money, unemployment checks not getting there. We're looking at a mess. So I think everyone realizes it's time to get to phase 2, which is reentry. But how? And when? Is it going to be different here than it is in a city or a state where they have very few cases? Yeah, I think theoretically it's probably going to be. Should it be everybody at the same time, everybody of the same age at the same time? Probably not. And I would think you're going to hear target dates very soon, and they're going to be very early May. And I think what has to happen here, we're not past anything from a health standpoint. And this is going to be very ticklish, folks. We're going to have to balance economic concerns versus health concerns. Health concerns versus societal concerns. Hospital concerns. And then region versus region, region versus nation, state versus state, state versus federal government. There's a lot of battles that can be waged here. And the best thing that can happen to any of us is we don't wage a whole lot of them, that everybody gets on the same page. And when we work best is when we have a plan, we have something to shoot at, a target date to shoot at. So if you can, and this goes for the president, this goes for Andrew Cuomo, this goes for Dr. Fauci, this goes for anybody who has the mic. What we want is, we want to know, what date can we shoot for? Or can you give us a plan where, hey, this week we'll do this, next week we'll do this, the next week we'll do this, and then the next week we'll do that over 4 weeks? Or give us a date that we can push for, and then tell us what it will take. Do we need cases to be at this level? Do cases have to be in a certain area at this level, and rate of death or rate of hospitalization versus number of cases have to be at this percentage and deaths have to be at that percentage? What is it going to take for an area to be approved, to be okay to move on? Or do we just now say, hey, we've taken the top off this, and now we're going to open up, we're going to go back. Maybe you're not all going to jam into Yankee Stadium next weekend. Maybe you're all not going to jam into, a rock concert the weekend after that. Maybe you're not all going to be on the beach on, Cinco de Mayo. But the point is, using smart judgment, using a measured response where you understand that everything isn't right, but we're going to try and get things restarted here because the alternative is not something anybody wants to face. Nobody wants economic ruin. Nobody wants civic unrest. Nobody wants to deal with any of that. Nobody wants to see everybody's businesses falling apart. I spoke to some people today with small business who were hanging in there. I spoke to some people today who were on the brink. I think everybody in their mind made a note that they hoped it would be different by Easter. That past Easter, they'd like to see some improvement. And that's why I think you have even the people in charge, be it a governor or be it the president or be it whoever it is, starting to look in terms of, hey, here's what it will take to open. And today, when the president speaks, whatever time that is, probably 5:30, today's message should be, here's what it will take to open. But don't tell us that you want to open and how you're going to have a smashing recovery, because you don't know that. And you're going to be doing this and that. Nonsense. Just tell us this. Here's what we're looking at. Here's the date we're targeting, and here's what has to happen for us to do that. I think that would be a step in the right direction. We're going to start by sending everybody who's 40 or under back to work because you're less of a risk. Back to work, back to school. Does school play into this? Are you going to reopen schools? In some cities where schools serve as daycare, do you open the schools just for that reason? Do you keep them closed and realize that's going to keep a lot of parents home? A lot of things to decide. See, there's two great fears here on reentry. One is that the hospitals get completely overrun. And the second is that it gets so bad that we have to shut it down again, because that would feel like we were beaten. That would come with such a cost that it would demoralize and crush, absolutely crush this country. This country's been harder hit than people realize. I think a couple of things have propped the country up. I think, number one, the resiliency of the American people is enormous, and I think the American people have handled this really well. Number two, the stock market has looked far better than anybody thought it would, because the Fed has put so much liquidity into the markets, into the credit markets, into the bond markets. So much liquidity that it has taken the top off that. Otherwise, you would have had a crisis already in the market. Instead, the market's a little, up and down. It's had its moments. It's made a nice recovery. I mean, if you look today, there were stocks, some of the big stocks made huge moves today. Amazon, which is adding another 75,000 workers, was up 125 points today. Tesla was up big today. It had taken a big hit. It was down. It was down 600 points. It's still down 400 points. Today it went up another 70 points. Some of the darlings of tech came back today. Oil has stabilized a little, but the market has served as a, wow, it's not as bad as we thought. Because the market during times of crisis, when the economy gets real bad, when you go through a real depression, when everyone talks about the depression, they always talk about the crash on Wall Street. You didn't get a crash this time. You got a real deep drop. And then it stabilized. And it stabilized because the Fed came in with a ton of liquidity. So the markets didn't have any problem. And that first week where there was talk of there being illiquid moments, they made sure that didn't happen. They backstopped everything. And they took all the pressure off. They let all the pressure out of the room. And that, I think, made everyone think in America is better than it really is. I think that really took the edge off stuff. Plus, we have worked at home far better than anybody realized. That's been the second part of this. How well people have actually worked at home. They've worked at home really very well. And we have been, I think private industry has been very accommodating and has tried really hard to chip in. And I understand for every athlete who has done a good thing, there's an athlete having a party. I understand that. So you take the good with the bad. And just realize some of them are just young and immature. But for the most part, industries have stepped up. People have stepped up. People, for the most part, have listened better than we probably thought they would. Has it made a difference? Yes. Has it made a big difference? We don't know yet. We're hoping it gets warmer and the virus doesn't carry well in the heat. Who knows if it's going to come back in November? Who knows when we get a therapeutic? Who knows when we get a vaccine? But what we do know is that we need to restart our country. I think everybody is on board. Everyone's appetite now is for that. Even if it means taking a little more risk, I think people are now ready for that part. Doesn't mean they're not going to take risk. And still, way too many people are dying, and they're not all 80 years old. So we've reached that fork in the road where some decisions have to be made. And now we'll see what those decisions are. Back after this. This, to me, is no great loss. I don't want to see anybody lose money. But here's the thing. I have been consistent from the days of the first springtime football league, of which I was asked to be a big part of and refused. I love football. Anybody who knows me knows I love football. But I love everything in its season. And I've never, ever been a proponent in any way or an ambassador for or a spokesman for or a participant in springtime football. I detest it. I have never believed it would work. And the fact that it was the first victim of this pandemic, I'm sorry to say that, but it never had a chance. No matter what it said, it never had a chance. No matter what it told you it had in the bank, it never had a chance. No matter what it had as a game plan, it never had a chance. Football is a endeavor for the fall. It is perfect where it is and when it is. And it should be left alone. And unfortunately, like I said, don't want to see anything be the victim of the pandemic, but it wasn't going to take much to crush a league which really had not a lot going for it because there's no plan. There's no springtime football plan that will work. Goodell will relay draft picks from his basement. Now, if that isn't emblematic of the times, that is it. To relay draft picks from his basement. Now, we broadcast and have for years now every day from my basement. When we started the app with CAA, when we went back to the fan, when we eventually made a deal with Entercom, what we do now, we do it from my studio that we built in the house a couple of years ago. So we were just a little ahead of the time. So that has worked very comfortably. Most of the newscasters, most of the people you see doing shows now, they might put fake uh, backdrops, and they might make them look like. Sorry about that. They might make them look like they're at 30 Rock or in the middle of New York City or whatever, but or they might do the classic bookcase and a bunch of trophies that everybody puts behind them, and maybe throw in a picture of their kid. Okay, we use our classic backdrop that we've always used, and we don't, bore you with any trophies or anything, or any plaques or anything like that. You know what? Not necessary. But I mean, it's funny to watch, isn't it? When you see somebody and now you're so used to seeing so many of them, and a lot of them are using fake drops behind them. But all you saw was the classic bookcase and whatever trophy they could grab. And then if they wrote a book, that book was always first. So it's almost like they came with a little catalog of how to do it. But you've now seen people do programs from their homes, from remote areas, from everywhere. And now, in this staying with the times, there's the commissioner. Here's one thing you know about Goodell. He's not going to get booed in his basement. I mean, he probably will feel out of place. Matter of fact, they should maybe hire 100 people to go to his basement and boo him. Because there is nobody in America who is better at getting booed or ignoring being booed more than the commissioner of the NFL. It's amazing. You watch him pick after pick, or whenever he is in public, he gets booed unmercifully. And I mean, not just booed, I mean booed out of the house. And he never lets it bother him. I mean, you got to give him credit for that. That's not an easy thing to do. I mean, he'll go there and they'll be screaming. You can hear it you can hear it 10 blocks away, and he never bats an eyelash, and just goes about his business. And now, I understand what you're saying. Hey, if I was making $40 million, I'd do the same thing. Well, maybe, but he's got a little bit of a hard bark on him. He does. He's a guy he's not afraid. Whether you like him or don't like him, and I don't particularly, like his antics. I used to get along with him a lot better. See, one thing you do is you criticize him, you can't talk to him, he won't talk to you. So if you ever knock him, he'll never do anything. He only does what he knows he's got to. The only interviews he does is when he's got a soft landing. He doesn't do any interviews. But as far as him showing up and doing stuff, hey, he does his job. Now, he could mess up anything. He has no touch when it comes to public relations, which is why he's so unpopular with the fan base. But you know what? He makes the league money, which is why he's there, and which is why they're paying him $40 million. And this year he'll have the draft. Now he won't be hugging everybody. There'll be no hugs either. There's no boos and no hugs. No hugs this year. So I guess you'll have to see. Maybe somebody will be inventive on one of the social medias or one of the applications somewhere, either on YouTube or on Twitter or somewhere. Someone will figure out a way for them to all have their classic hug, because the hug has become the suit, the suit that you just got. And whether it's a statement suit or a little more conventional suit or whatever, the suit, usually a three-piece. And guys who don't wear a lot of suits wear three-piece suits. They go get three-piece suits. Somebody talks them into them. Never get talked into a three-piece suit. Never. Conventional suit, no three-piece suit. Okay? No, it doesn't work. Does not work. Just a regular suit. All right? And keep it traditional. As Chuck Daly, the late Chuck Daly once said, everybody looks good in a blue suit and a tuxedo. So just remember that. When in doubt, blue suit. Can't miss. Blue suit, tuxedo, nobody looks bad. I don't care if you're the worst looking guy in the world. You will look good in a blue suit or a tuxedo. You can't miss. Cannot miss. So you don't need all these crazy suits and all this crazy stuff. So you can do away with the suits since the players don't have to go, and no hugs. But we will have the draft coming up a week from Thursday, and you get a lot of, the general managers wanted to cancel it. They're like, we don't have the ability to make the trades. We don't have the IT, which means, the technical stuff. We don't have all that ready to go. We won't have this will be a little more old-fashioned. Like when they used to take the players out of the street in Smith Magazine. Well, they didn't really, but that's what they got accused of doing. But it's a little more traditional where they're not going to have poked and prodded and spent as much time with the players as in the past. They still were allowed to Zoom and have these, these virtual meetings. They were allowed to have those. They were all mandated by the league, but you were allowed to have those with the players. So that went on. And, you're trying to see, you get a lot of tour rumors. Burrow's going 1. Chase Young's going 2. I'll be stunned if he doesn't. I don't think Rivera's taking anybody except him. Then it'll get fun. And I think the most likely thing is the Dolphins, who have the picks to do it, trade up from 5 to 3 to ensure they get Tua. And then we're off and running from there. The Giants will be able to take they'll take a tackle. I hope they don't screw it up. Or they'll take a really good defensive player. They'll have both available to them. So they really can't mess up at 4. Because most likely they're going to be looking at 3 picks off the board, 2 quarterbacks, and Young. And then they have their pick of things. They're not going to pick the corner, so they're going to pick Simmons or they're going to pick an offensive tackle. I don't think they'll pick the defensive lineman from Auburn. I doubt it. I don't think they will. If I had to guess, I'd guess they'll pick the tackle, but that's giving them too much credit. Because I think other than Tua, I think might be the best player in the draft. The tackle from Iowa. So he's got everything you want in a tackle. He could be around and be a fixture for 10 years for somebody. He's that good. And he's got a little nasty, and he's, athletic and physical, and he was a wrestler and the whole shebang, and I think he could be really good. That would be the best pick. Let's see what they wind up doing. But it's going to be interesting to do. It's going to be interesting to watch, and it's going to give us a little bit of a diversion. And for once, we don't care how long it takes between picks. We've got nowhere to go. So if they want to take a 5-hour first round, be our guest. What do we care? What do we got going on? Now, if it's the old days, hey, time is of the essence. Right now, it's not. So I will be fascinated to see the president coming up in just a little while. He hasn't come up yet. This is going to be a very big press conference because there's a lot going on. Him and Fauci, him responding to the governors today, who had the little Northeast governors meetings. A couple other governors made some statements today. So we all know he's thinking about opening things up. He also knows that he's getting reports that food banks are struggling. I said that yesterday morning on the show. They're worried about stocking shelves. They're worried about the supply chain starting to break down. They're worried about people who haven't gotten money yet. Now it's been a month and they don't have any money. And then they worry about a lot of other things happening. Worry about a little bit about law and order. Worry about civil unrest. Worry about a whole bunch of stuff when people get hungry. So this has become a very, very critical time. This is it. This is what's going to define the rest of this spring and into the summer. What happens here this week. Can't duck it. Can't say, hey, we're doing great. Can't say, hey, you know what, we're going to give out a bunch of tests now. They already screwed the testing stuff up. If you go back, they said the first week, Pence got up there the first week and said, we will give out 1 million tests by the weekend, and we will have given out 5 million tests in 2 weeks. We are that was a month ago, and we have done less than 2 million tests nationally. Why? 2 reasons. Number one, the stuff they need for the test they don't have. And number two, half the tests that the FDA has allowed people to make don't work. They allowed a whole bunch of people to make tests except one thing. They weren't capable of making them. So we don't have a lot of tests. So that hadn't worked out all that well. So I don't know how much testing is going to play into this in the immediate future because no one has any tests. So there's a time where as a leader, you got to move. I think the president realizes he's got to move now. He's got to set a target date. He's got to give everybody a plan. Now, it doesn't mean he has to be in charge of each state opening. He can leave that to the governors or work with the governors. It also gives him a little fallback, which he likes to have. But more than that, you got to give every American what's going on. Let us know what's going on. What are we building towards? What are we looking to do here? And you know what I heard a lot of this last week? Hey, enough's enough. I'd rather take my chances. Let's go back to work. I didn't hear that the first couple of weeks. I've been hearing that the last couple of days. Enough. Let's go back to work. Enough. If I get sick, I get sick. Let's go back to work. Now, you're not going to say that if you get really sick. And we're all going to feel a lot better. I mean, let's be honest. I can tell you right now. Do I want to see them open things up? I do. I'm worried about what the alternative is. Will I go back and go to concerts and go to crowded? Oh, first, I don't take the subway anyway, but I mean, would I go into crowded concert halls? No, I wouldn't. Would I go into crowded restaurants? No, I wouldn't right now. Would I go into crowded stadiums right now? No, I wouldn't. Would I go into crowded arenas? I would not. Not until I knew that I could pick up the phone and say to the doc, listen, I've had 102 for 3 days. I'm coughing. I can't breathe that well. You got something for me? And he says, yeah, come in, get a checkup, but I can put you on this stuff for 5 days, you'll be fine. When that happens, when you have that assurance, it's a game changer. Now, will it be a whole lot better when they have a vaccine? Heck yeah. Well, that's the end of it. You know, we haven't lived through the things that killed people. What happened when a town had a outbreak of typhoid or smallpox or scarlet fever or, what went on with the fear about polio, even measles. All these things became a thing of the past because we got vaccines that ended them all. Curing polio was a big deal. That was a big deal. Changed that's a game changer. And somebody will come up with a vaccine, and that will be a game changer. That person will become famous. Just like Salk became famous, that person will become famous and wealthy, or wealthier, but famous. And, in the investment community, you hear everyone's got a buzz of, oh, this one's got it, this company's got it, this company's got it, that company's got it. We'll see. I hope 8 of them have it. I hope it's a race to see which one can get it there faster and better. That's what we're all looking for. Back after this.
New York Sports Radio. Mike's on. Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM. WFAN.
All right, on this very nasty, windy Monday, we join you. Brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Brought to you by those who drink it on this Monday evening after Easter. I know a very different Easter than you've ever experienced. It's been a wild day. We just got power back. We had lost it all day. The high winds, there were winds up to 70 miles an hour. It's still windy out there, so be safe on this crazy day. I said, after looking at this weather today, what's next? Locust? I mean, what else is going to happen to us? As we can't get out of the house, and we got, pouring rain and heavy winds. We lose power today, but thankfully the PSE&G guys, and if they're listening, because I know they're listeners, did a great job. Thank you. I appreciate you getting my power back so I could do the show today, and they did a good job. We lost it at 9 o'clock this morning. I saw them around, I guess, about 11:30, 12. I said, hey, I'm on the air at 5. Can you help me out? And they got back at 4. So Thank you very much. They did a very good job. So good job by PSANG. This is going to be a big day, and I'm a little disappointed by what I'm watching because I waited to hear the president today. And I knew there was going to be a lot of Fauci because Fauci over the weekend made a comment that made Trump look bad. So the headlines were screaming about he should have done it earlier. Trump is incredibly sensitive to that. There were rumors he retweeted this. Somebody said fire Fauci. He retweeted that, so everyone thought that he was after him. You knew he was going to pop him up early today. He did. And now, instead of telling us what we want to hear, which is, hey, what is the plan going forward? We just heard Andrew Cuomo today have a teleconference with 6 governors all about, hey, here's how we're going to try to proceed. You heard other guys today talk about, here's how we're going to try and proceed. Here's what we have to weigh. That's what you want to hear. And instead, we're back to, I closed it first. I did this. Hey, he can't win this battle. They have the tapes. We've heard them. They're already out in commercials of when he said it was a hoax, of when he said that it would never hit our shores, of when he said it's going to piff and be gone. He had a bad start on this. We know that. Now, instead of getting past that, now we got all Fauci. That's all we got. And instead of that, we can't hear anything about the future. I want to know where we're going from here. I don't care anymore. I don't care. I'm trying to blame anybody. We got to get past the blame game here. We got to get past this, that. Let's get to how we move on. America needs a plan to move forward. At least today, the governors went out there. I watched Cuomo at 11. And, it's still the bad news again. 677 dead. Horrific numbers. The numbers still growing. And you knew there was going to be an issue. Today was the whole thing about Trump and Fauci and everything else. But instead of it being about what we want it to be about, what we need it to be about, it's still about who gets the blame, who was right, who's telling the truth. Hey, the president, I understand he's obsessed with that part. Okay? And he wasn't going to fire Fauci because that would have been a dumb move. So the guys who want him to fire Fauci want to hammer if he did. We're hoping he would. He's not going to be dumb enough to fire Fauci. He knows Fauci's approval rating is like 94%. So he's not doing that. Okay? But Fauci went up there and basically took back everything supposedly he said yesterday. I didn't see what he said yesterday. I just saw the headlines today. Okay? Doesn't matter. Who cares now what happened in January? What's going to matter now as far as who's going to get elected in November on the day where Bernie endorses Biden. So now you officially have Biden versus Trump and nothing else, okay? He now got behind Biden today. So, you have Biden, you have Trump. So instead, it's still about the blame game. I did this, I did that, I did this. How about we get to what we were hoping for, which is to hear something about a plan to move forward? That's what we care about. That's what the guy or the lady listening cares about now, who's been cooped up for weeks and wants to hear some good news, who hasn't gotten a dime yet and doesn't have any money to spend and is worried about how they can get their food or worried about what's going on in the supermarkets or somebody telling me they had to buy toilet paper on the internet, okay, someone I know. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That's where we are. Instead of being there, let's start to talk about how we get to the next phase of this. Then we'll sort out, okay? Here's the bottom line. What we care about, what most rational thinking people care about is, how do I get my life back safely? That's it. The stuff for the election will sort itself out. If the president thinks the guy listening or the lady listening right now cares about who said what in January, he couldn't be more wrong. What that person cares about right now is how I feed my family, how I get my job back, how I save my business, how I get my life back, how I get back to some form of normalcy and do it safely so that I don't wind up sick or wind up a statistic. In a country where we already had, we have only 22,000 dead, but we had 10,000 dead last week. Now we have 22. At that rate, next week we're going to have 35. And the cases are still ratcheting up. A couple weeks ago we had 20,000 cases. Now we have 500,000 cases. And it's probably many, many more than that. So what the news shows want is to get Trump. And what Trump wants to do is to prove that they can't get him and that he was the first and he was the only one who knew. He didn't know. We all know that. What he should say is nobody knew. Nobody really knew. Was I the first to do everything? No. But no one else knew it was going to be like this either, folks. That's the right thing to say because that's the truth. That's the truth. Nobody knew what this was going to be. But what about the response? You look to the national government to lead. When Pearl Harbor happened, nobody went to FDR and said, you should have known it was going to happen. You should have known what was going to happen. Everyone was looking for the Japanese fleet. How do you not know it was in? That's not what they said to the president. They listened to him give a speech and they rallied around it. Years later, all right, were there people who said, oh, he knew this and he knew that? Fine, everyone does that in retrospect. They can do that 15 years from now. They can teach it in a course at some Ivy League school about what he knew and what he didn't know. What we care about now is how we rally our country back to a place where we can all go back to living a normal life. That's what we care about. The people who like him are going to believe the stuff he tells them. The people who don't like him aren't going to believe anything he says. So move on from that stuff. And let's get to a plan. Give people a plan. Give them some reason to have some hope right now. Give them some reason to figure out a way to go forward right now. I give Andrew Cuomo credit because that's what he did this afternoon. He didn't say, I have a date for you yet, but he said, here's how we're going to plan it. We're going to put together a commission. We're going to have the 6 states all agree on how we do this because we're all intertwined. We all use the I-90. We all use I-95. We all use this. We can be in this state and that state. So we're not going to act like we're one state. We're going to act like we're all one big state. And we're going to open and close things in cooperation. Cooperation is a nice word right now. That's what we need from our leaders right now, some form of cooperation so that we win. All they care about is they win. It's not about that right now. That'll take care of itself. Take care of the American people. Take care of this crisis, and everything else will take care of itself in November. Instead of, oh, let me put him up here now and let him recant what he said yesterday because I basically told him he had to do that because everyone thinks that anyway, okay? He got asked that. Of course everyone thinks that. He got propped right up in the first minute. So everybody thinks that anyway. It doesn't work. And you know what it means? It means, again, the one mistake he keeps making. He keeps putting him in front of us. Right now, it's got to be about us. Because we're tired of being home, worried about our lives, worried about our businesses, worried about feeding our families, worried about where the next meal is coming from, and looking for some answers. And that's what you look to your leaders for when things are bad. You look for them for direction, for leadership, for a plan. Something we all need something to rally around. We are incredibly divided. We need something to unify us and something we can rally around. Sometimes you can listen to a Yankee victory back with Susan and John back in 2009 when the Yankees beat the Twins. A-Rod had a big hand in that. He had a big hand in everything in that postseason, as a matter of fact. The Yankees don't win that year without A-Rod, who had 16 RBIs in the postseason that year. Had really a remarkable run and a big home run, obviously, against the Twins. An enormous home run to right field that really changed things. The sad part of all this is that you can sense in everybody, at least I can, in the people I've talked to, that they're reaching what they think is like a crossroads where they know that there's no proven answer, but that the people who are going to make the decision, and we all know it's not just the president, it's going to be the governors in a lot of states. The governors are the ones who close the states. They're going to be the ones to reopen them. They have to decide, and they have to weigh a very important decision, and that is, at what point do we risk the general health of the people with the general economic and mental and maybe cultural well-being of the people? We're putting enormous strains on a lot of different parts of our economy, our supply lines, our ability to restore the food lines. There are a lot of people who are out of work, a lot of people worried about the jobs they spent their lifetime building up, the businesses they now created that might employ 5 people or 6 people or 8 people or 10 people or 20 people or 50 people, whatever it may be. But they put their lives, blood, sweat, and tears into building that business. And a lot of those businesses run on a thread where they just get by. They get by enough for someone to have a house and have a couple cars and put a couple kids through college and not much else, and employ a couple of people. But, that's what it's about. That's what, having a business is about. That's the idea. Not everyone's going to, make $1 billion. And not everyone has to. But it's about that person now. It's about all those people now. And instead, it's this complete nonsense about, oh, I said this on this date, and I didn't see this memo, and they said I saw this memo, and then nobody cares. You wish you knew how much nobody cares. Going to get judged on where it goes from here. Nobody knew we were going to get hit like this. We all knew that. But presidents and leaders, and not just presidents, governors, senators, everybody who's in front of a microphone who makes a decision, those people, they get put in a position of authority, and then they need to respond when things get tough, like now. And now's when you distinguish yourself. And we have a tough decision to make. We know we need to get this country moving again. But we also know that we face some risks from that virus that we have not overcome. And it's a very delicate balance that we're trying to strike there. And for the first time, I had people actually say to me, you know what? I'll take my chances. I got to get back to work. I got to get back to my business. I got to get back to this or that. I'll take my chances now. My chances are better now. Maybe they took the top off this thing. Maybe it's going to get warmer now and it's going to be the right time of year. And maybe if I get it, I'm going to get past it. But if I have no business to come back to in the middle of June, what good is it? If I put 18 or 20 people, I know someone who put 700 people out of work. And was sick about it. But what is it supposed to do? You can't pay 700 people. You can for a week. You can't pay them for a month. No money coming in. And you got businesses that haven't had a dime coming in now for a month. We're not set up for that. You're talking about a $22 trillion economy. It's been shut down for a better part of a month. And you're talking about shut down fairly tight. But we got to get past this idea of, oh, let me tell you tonight and tell you that it's none of this is true, and I did this and I did that, and he's going to say, oh, well, let me get him up here. He'll say that I did this. So Fauci takes back everything that supposedly started the headlines yesterday, and no one buys any of it. But then what happened is we didn't learn anything tonight. We didn't advance this tonight. You didn't go to bed and put your head on your pillow tonight and say, hey, now I got something to look forward to tomorrow. I got a plan. I got an idea of what we're going to do. What you have is you think those people are going to bed tonight weighing which day this person decided this or which day this one said that and this one said this. No one cares. You don't know how little they care. They care about themselves because that's what they're supposed to do. They care about their families. They care about their business. They care about their next meal and their next paycheck. That's what they care about. And as an elected official, that's what you have to care about. All you, not just the president, governors, senators, whoever we're talking about, whoever makes a decision. Because that's why you're there. And it's time that we get a plan that we can hang on to. We all know, if you pay a close attention to this, all you heard today was different people saying, hey, we need to get this back opened up. That's all you heard. You heard it from the governor in Texas. You heard it from the governor in California. You heard it from Andrew and 5 other governors in the Northeast. That's what they held this thing for, to tell you, here's what our plan is. And everyone needs to know how that's going to work. What does that look like? What does that mean for me? Can I be safe doing that? Can I go back to work? Can I do this? Are my kids going back to school? What's going to happen here in the next month? That's what they care about. That's what they want to know. At times like this, you got to care about what they think about, what the people care about. It's about the people. Not about a re-election campaign. Very sad. Very predictable, unfortunately, but very sad. We need to move forward here now in this. We really do. It's time. And I'm not saying that, listen, I'm not saying we should open tomorrow because that's not in the works. And forget the idea of testing because I think that's by the boards. I haven't even heard anything about testing in weeks now. That makes any sense. If they start bringing that up again, that'll be something new because when was the last time anybody even brought up testing? I haven't heard the word testing in weeks. Would we all like to be tested for antibodies? Yeah, we'd like to know if we had it. And eventually, I guess that'll happen, but you know what? I don't know when it is. But we're all getting ready to put one foot back in front of the other again. And to get moving in the right direction. Because none of us want to know what our companies or our livelihoods or our businesses or anything is going to look like come June and July. We're not built for that. This economy is not built for that. Our society is not built for that. And yes, there comes a point where the cure can be worse than the disease, although the disease has been pretty nasty. And it continues to be pretty nasty. As we said, put that aside for a little while. Think about better days. halcyon days of yore, like the last time the Yankees made a run towards a championship. It's been a while. Everyone says they got a team this year that can make another one. That'd be nice. Who knows? Maybe that season will start before too long. Hey, on a rainy, ugly, windy night when you didn't, when a lot of people like me didn't have power all day, you know what? You need something to think pleasantly about, like a baseball game in July or something like that. So Susan and John are next. Casamigos Tequila, as always, brings you the program brought to you by those who drink it. We'll see you tomorrow. Be safe.